Hi, everybody, and welcome to the show. Dave Emmons here, and it's the Strange Reality Show. I'm not right now connected with any network. I'm doing my show on my own now, and it's going on Facebook and YouTube and all these other channels. I got about 8 or 9 different channels, and I might even start another one. My guest here today was informing me, giving me some information on some platforms. So you learn something all the time about this business. But I got a great guest on today, and it's always nice to have people who know what they're talking about. And that's what I get on my show. And a lot of people ask me, said, well, Dave, how do you get all these people to know what they're talking about? And I said, because I guess I try to be nice to them, and I give them all, the opportunity, and I don't diss anybody. I'm an open-minded person. I'm a believer. I'm an experiencer, and I'm one of them. So I know where they're coming from. So that's why how I get a lot of these people on. And my guest today, Jesse F. Peak, here on the Strange Reality Show. He's a certified MUFON field investigator. If you just remember, we had Earl Gray on the show about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Great guy, and Jesse also worked with him. I like Earl Gray. He'll be back on the show. He's a fun guy. He's also a musician, so that's why I'm a musician too. And so he's a certified MUFON field investigator for the state of Pennsylvania. MUFON ERT, that's an experiencer resource team. That's a great team to be on if you're in MUFON, and an ERT mentor. MUFON CAG, Case Assistance Group, member of the SCU, Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies. So Jesse puts in a lot of work into this, and I know it takes a lot of work because it even takes a lot of work just to do this show. So I know what he's doing. He's busy all the time. The Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies. And I guess MUFON hasn't changed their strategy. They're not sticking with UFOs. They're going to UAPs. Is that right, Jesse?
No, they're actually sticking to the UFO. I mean, it's still
Really?
in the name, the
Okay.
Mutual UFO Network. So
Yeah, I had to interrupt that bio just to ask that question because, yeah, with certifications in astronomy, space exploration, space advocacy, mental health, uh, it's a be there certificate, case management, introduction to computer technology. I need more of that. Basics of digital imaging, Google Analytics, PowerPoint, public speaking, and disposition into investigations. Also, a published writer in the MUFON Monthly Journal. Good job. Kudos, brother. Yeah. And he's an ex-Army 13 Bravo Artillery Cannon crew member. Thank you for your service, Jesse. I've served too, so I appreciate it wholeheartedly. And in the Army National Guard, where he did his training at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. He's the counselor for 5 years, teaching classes to young adults and Eagle Scouts. Great job there too for the kids. Jesse is the project director at Project Batek 404, researching and investigating electrical malfunctions associated with UAP encounters that now has the largest data on EM to date. Lastly, Jesse is the co-founder and EM research team lead at the UAP Medical Coalition, helping to educate medical professionals on experiencer exposures from UAP encounters so they are no longer misdiagnosed. You can catch Jesse every week on his radio podcast called UFO Encounters Worldwide, available on all podcast platforms and the UNX network radio station. And busy guy. He's got a website, Project Batek 404, WordPress.com. So, Jesse, you want to add anything new that's going on with you, brother? I'm really happy with that bio. I mean, the military service and working hard with MUFON and trying to get this UAP thing straightened out. Kudos to you. That's what we're here for, to enlighten people, brother.
yeah, thank you very much, Dave. I appreciate you having me on today and being able to share some of the information that I've been working with. Today's a really important day too. They just had the UAP hearings today in
Yes.
the Capitol Hill. So that was really cool. I thought some really great information came out with that. I guess we'll get into that. But yeah,
Yes.
just staying busy with everything, the projects that you just went over, going on year 2 for Project Batek 404, and we're coming up on the 1 year for the UAP Medical Coalition. So some important work there for sure.
And you're working with your book will be published, I guess, through Flying Disc Press.
Yeah, Philip Mantle in
Yeah,
the
Philip
UK, the
Mantle.
researcher. Yeah, he's my publisher.
Yeah.
Lion Press does an amazing job, and he wanted a field investigator from America to write a book, and I reached out to him at the same time, and it was kind of perfect timing. So yeah, been working on the book for the past year. I got one more chapter to write, and it'll probably be out by the end of this year, beginning of next year, January.
Wow, that's great. Philip Mantle, I've had him on my show in the past. He's also we've communicated quite a bit. He sends me his authors a lot of times to
Yeah,
interview. So
yeah,
we have a good connection. Philip and I do, and he's I give him a shout out all the time. Philip Mantle, UK researcher and the Flying Disc Press, great guy, great book publishing company too.
yeah.
Now your book is going to be about, maybe we can start there. What is your book going to be about? Because I want people to know your book.
So the book is it's called Unidentified, an investigator's journey and shocking experiences. So it's basically from when my career as an investigator really took off, doing boots on the ground investigations. Goes through the inception of Project Bat Tech, how that happened due to my sighting. One of my sightings that had an EM encounter, and that kind of brought that out.
Mm,
So that was really cool. So that's all in there. My personal contact experiences with, I guess we can say, non-human intelligences
right.
that went on for a couple years and still kind of goes on to this date. We also go over some of the UAP Medical Coalition stuff and some of the cases that I've worked on throughout the years. There's also a case file in there of specifically EM cases to show how important it is.
Mhm.
And a whole bunch of other little UFO history tab points that I feel that are really important that happen throughout UFO history that people should really pay attention to. So it's got a little bit of everything in it, and hopefully that'll really, touch with a lot of different people when they go to read it.
It sounds really good, Jesse, and Jesse Peak. He's my guest, the guy that just got done talking, and it sounds good because you're putting your experiences in there, and
Right.
but then you're adding on to other experiences. It's kind of like I did my second book, Senseless Wars and Conflicts. I put my combat memoirs in the first half of the book, and then I put the other senseless wars after that, like
Okay. Yeah.
Iraq, Afghanistan, that type of thing. And so and a lot of other wars, conflicts, not wars, but that's a good way to do it. It's kind of like letting people know your experiences, and then you're actually letting them know what's going on. That's a
Right.
that's a way to enlighten people. Jesse, could I ask you, uh, in your book or whatever, I know we're going to be talking about Batek before long, and we're going to talk about your UK connection with this operation and everything, and also your other memberships, or not memberships, but other workings that you're doing with these other organizations. Could you tell us how you got into this UFO thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually got into the field really late in my life. I would have liked to have been involved in it, and from a young age until now, but I didn't know there was a UFO community out there. Actually, I caught a TV show one day back in, I think it was probably about 9 years ago now. And, I got a hold of Chariots of the Gods by Eric Von Daniken. I went to the library and had to go jump through a couple different libraries because not all of them had the book.
Right.
Finally got it. I read the book and I was completely hooked from then. I found out there was a community I could be a part of. That's when MUFON's name came up. And being a Boy Scout and Eagle Scout and being in service with the military, this was kind of like right up that alley. So once I found out I could do some training and become a field investigator, do some boots on the ground investigations, I joined MUFON in 2019, and I've been a field investigator ever since. But that book and Ancient Aliens and the work that Eric Von Daniken did, and it just kind of really opened my eyes to this whole thing. And through joining and getting involved and helping other people in their experiences, it's made me look back on my life to see the different things that happened to me that are anomalous in a sense that I never looked at as contact or paranormal.
Mhm.
A lot of us we were brought up thinking of Santa Claus and that he comes and visits you on Christmas Eve and brings you things. So when you see a light in the sky on Christmas Eve, that's Santa Claus. But now you look back at that, and that's an unidentified aerial phenomenon or
Right.
unidentified flying object.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it all started off.
Yeah. I I guess you're working, you're doing MUFON, and you're writing a book. It's kind of hard to find the time to do all that, isn't it? I mean, you know,
Yeah.
writing will take up a lot of your spare time. That's for sure. Like
Yes, it
3 hours
does.
a night, maybe 4 or 5 nights a week. Give yourself a break. I know that's how I've written my last 3 books and on my fourth book now. But yeah, it's a lot of hard work. A lot of people don't understand. It's a lot of hard work being on these shows, because
Yeah.
you as a guest, you have to come across and let the people know what's happened to you, and you have to be right down. You don't have to be right down the line on my show, that's for sure. You can be relaxed and comfortable and tell your story, but there's no skeptics here. There's no box on my head here. So there's I'm very open to, and I want to hear, actually, when you're talking about your UFO, could you tell us about your first exciting UFO encounter, and your contact with ET, Jesse?
So I didn't have real contact sighting until after I got into the field, and we know that usually goes by the name of the hitchhiker effect.
Right.
I jumped right in feet first, and I was taking experiencer reports, and I was doing sighting cases, and doing different little small projects here and there with people in the field, and I wind up being woken up at the same time in the middle of the night between about 1 to 3 a.m. in the morning, and I would get pulled off the bed, or my feet would get tugged, or I'd have something feeling on my chest, and I'd wake up gasping for air, or I'd be waking up getting put into the wall and having bruises on my arms and things. And I really didn't, know what was happening to me. That all started, but then during that time, I had my first UFO sighting, and it happened right here in Philadelphia with my dad, who was a skeptic at the time, and he was a skeptic when I got into the field. He didn't understand the subject, had no knowledge on it, and he was with me, and he saw these objects too. And it was a broad daylight and coming down Main Street in the city of Philadelphia. There was 4 gold objects that were flying right beside us, parallel. And we're driving in a truck, so we're looking at them, and he actually saw them first, which was crazy because he's a skeptic, of course. And I'm trying to pull my phone out, brand new phone. I just got the phone about a month ago, and I had just hung up the phone prior to having the sighting. So we're driving along with them, and I pull the phone out and I try to open it up to take a video or a photo of these objects because I want to have proof of it to show my mom and some of my friends later. And the phone it starts locking up and pressing buttons by itself. I compare it to what happened on Skinwalker Ranch when you see the security
Yeah.
guard's phone
Right.
pressing all the buttons. Well, that was happening on my cell phone. So we kept following them. We hit a stoplight, and they went from a 2-and-2 formation into a single file line. I then start playing with the phone again, and it wound up kicking on as they went farther. And the first and second object disappeared at the blink of an eye, just like that. They didn't fly away. And I was able to get a still photo of the last 2 objects before they disappeared. So I was happy I had something to show for. And when we
Yes.
got back home later, I was looking at the photos to show to my mom, and I'm looking at it, and there was a video recording on my phone. When my phone was acting up and pressing all those different buttons during the sighting, it was actually recording the entire situation without me knowing at all. So you actually hear me playing with the phone saying, "Oh my God, the phone's not working. I can't get it. I can't believe I'm going to miss them." And I'm getting mad at them, and you hear it all.
Yeah.
And it was crazy the malfunction that occurred during that period. And with our research with Project Battech, we found out that these craft have to be within a certain range to cause electrical malfunction. So when we hit that stoplight and they continued to go, that's when my phone kicked back on. They got out of range. So I was able to get that last still photo of them. But it was incredible because it made him a believer, and now he goes to all the different conferences with me. You know what I mean? So it's kind of cool that we had that experience together, and it was my first too.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it was really cool, and to have all that happen at once, you're kind of
Yeah.
took a while to get it all out and understand it, but
It's
and,
good to have family support in these types of situations and have
yeah,
witness. I've got my whole family is supportive because they've seen UFOs. My mom's had encounters and things of that nature, and she's
okay,
95. She's 95. Think about putting her on the air.
why not?
I've had a couple of people ask me to,
Right,
or tell her experiences, but no, I think about this electronic thing. You're right. That when they get out of a certain distance, that means you can't see them very good. So
right,
they don't want you to get really close up pictures of their ships. They don't want you to get
exactly,
close up pictures of them. it seems like all six of my encounters, of course, my first two encounters, I was too young, 13 and 14. I didn't have a camera. I didn't even have a Timex watch. I was too poor. So I couldn't even tell the time. But it's true that UFOs, they show up at times you don't expect them.
That's right.
They come right up on you. And even if you did have a camera, like you said, it wouldn't work at close range. It's like Dr. David Jacobs says, if you're within 100 to 150 feet of them, you're the target. You're going to be nabbed. So
Right.
that's basically true. Now, your other sightings after that, did they continue, Jesse?
So between the next sighting and that one, I had my contact experiences started getting really intense. Um, I was really, I woke up a couple different times in paralysis, completely so scared that I couldn't move in my bed. My cat, I would bring my cat in my room, and animals can see on a different frequency. So usually they can see spirits and ghosts and things like that. So I thought if I brought her in his room, maybe I could figure something out. And she would sit at the end of my bed and she would look as if somebody was walking in my room in the same area every night. So that kind of confirmed that for me. But when I started to wake up and half of my body would be on the floor and my legs still in bed, it started to get to the point where it was like, okay, what's going on? I can't take this, and I was scared because I had never experienced anything like this before. And then the bruises on my body from being thrown into the wall and waking up being thrown into the wall by something really got me to the point where I was like, okay, this is enough. I don't want this happening anymore. I did everything in my power to tell them to stop and to go away, and I didn't want this to happen to me. I used crystals and sage and Palo Santo oils and did all that, and eventually it died down. Now I did have a remote view the situation without giving them facts of where it took place, what was happening to me. I just said I was having some contact experiences that I needed help with. The remote viewer pointed out that it was happening in my room and that the area was my closet where a portal had opened up and a being was coming through and doing this to me in the middle of the night to get my attention to show me a location. Now, I didn't tell them that area that my cat was watching was my closet area. So the remote viewer knew all the right details. So I didn't, it was shocking. I'm like, they're not going to get this right, but they did. They got every bit of it right. And they told me the location was a river or a lake of some sort attached to a mountain or a hill. And it wants you to see this. And that's why it keeps bugging you every night at this time to show you this location. So ever since then, I've been trying to figure out this location, and the experiences have gone downhill and really come to like a stop.
Mhm.
I still get very little paranormal activity. Sometimes I'll see things getting hit or things shaking when nobody's there during the night. But it really hasn't come back to where I'm being thrown against the wall or being touched or pulled out of bed. But during that, when it finally calmed down a little bit, I had another sighting. But this sighting wasn't a solid object. It was more, it reminded me of like a purple, gold, blue, whitish mist.
Mhm.
And I was sitting and it was nighttime and I'm looking at the tree line and I see this mist it came out of nowhere. It appeared and it was going from my right to my left flying, and it made 6 to 7 erratic turns and then dissipated until it just disappeared and went poof. Now that had me like, oh my God, like, because I figure I see a flying saucer,
Mhm.
but this thing was not a solid object. It was not tangible. You know what I mean? You
You
couldn't.
you think it's holographic?
I don't know. It kind of looked like a mist. Like if I went like that and tried to swing at it or grab it, it would, go poof.
Yeah,
um,
my third book is Angels and Supernatural Entities. Uh, in that book, I wrote the difference between ETs and ghosts and angels. There hardly is a difference, and what you're talking about is being thrown up against the wall. Uh, I guess a lot of ghost people, the first thing they think about it's a ghost
yeah,
or poltergeist. Now,
right,
UFO people or ET people like you and I, we know that we've been planted seeds by seeing these craft and also knowing about these things. And that's where we come up with our ideas of what it really is. But I've had a lot of people tell me when I tell them about my experiences, if they're really ghost specialists or investigators, they'll say, "Don't you think that's a ghost, Dave?" I said, no, there's too many seeds planted from
right.
these UFOs that I've seen and things that I've noticed, and I actually seen some on my camera. So no, it's a, and then you talk about they grabbed your foot, just
Yeah, it's like you read scary stories when you're a kid, and you say the monster's at the end of your bed, pulling you, and that's what would happen, and it would like yank my foot and let go, just to get my like she said, the remote viewer, get my attention. Like it just wanted to wake me up to get me to look at something, or and it makes sense because it was never like I was being touched like crazy. It was always enough to where I'd wake up and feel it, and
mhm.
then I'd be awake.
Well,
You
I've
know?
had the same thing, and I've heard you already say a few things that's happened to you that's actually happened to me too. I can,
Okay.
I can parallel a lot of these things. My foot has been touched, I imagine, 4 or 5 times, but one time I remember really well. It grabbed my right foot, my toe, and I was in bed, and I guess I must have been half asleep or whatever, and it pulled on my gnarly toe. It, I had a bad toenail, and it yanked on it really hard. And I woke up and I jumped out of bed. Oh, that hurt, because that was the only time they ever hurt me physically.
Wow.
The other times I was hurt electrically. It was shocked. I was like static shock. That kind of hurt a little bit, but I was paralyzed. Uh, Now you said you were paralyzed. There's a lot of people say, okay, we have the Lilith, the bad evil angel,
Yes.
and they said that she's the hag that jumps on your chest. And my brother had that experience, and that's a what like the old hag that jumps on your chest. But there's a medical term also, sleep paralysis. But
Right.
there's an ET happening thing. I call it dumb down. I don't know what you call it. They numb in you, and they knock out your partner that's in bed with you. They knock them out because you're the target, not them.
Right.
Now, how do you feel the difference? I mean, yeah, the difference is between the old hag on your chest, the sleep paralysis, and the ET numbing down and actually hitting you with magnetic energy that anesthetizes you. Can you explain the difference on how you felt on that? Have you had sleep paralysis yourself?
Well, the paralysis that I had was I woke up in the middle of the night and had complete paralysis where I could not move, and I had a negative feeling that something negative was there, and it frightened me to the point where I was not able to turn and even look at where it was coming from.
Right.
So that's the kind I had. And I had that only 2 times happen to me. And I was told that you had this portal that opened up. Not just good things can come through; it can be bad things as well. So it might have been something else that came through that was really trying to terrorize me. I'm not sure, but it was very frightening.
Yeah, I reason I'm explaining these differences because I have a lot of people who write me and ask me, "Well, how do I know I've been abducted, and what does it feel like to be, knocked out or paralyzed?" Well, I try to explain the three differences: the old hag on the chest, and the sleep paralysis is medical terminology, and the third one is being numbed or anesthetized by an ET with magnetic energy. There's a difference. The one with the ET, when you're knocked out, you actually are aware of things. I mean, I can look around and I knew there's something next to me, and actually something sat next to me on my bed. So I
Okay.
knew that was going on. In sleep paralysis, nothing happens. I mean, I have had it twice in my life, sleep paralysis. That was when I was younger, actually. And I had that, and I know the difference between the two. So I know how to explain the difference between two when
Right.
people ask me. But when they numb you down, you can see. They let you use your eyes. You can see, but you can't do nothing. They don't want you to do anything. They're in control, and they let you know that. Now, after you had these incidents, like, do you feel that you were abducted, Jesse?
I don't know, and I've asked myself that question a lot. Between that and what it was that I was trying to be shown, was I taken? I'm not sure. And that's why hypnosis has been a question. Do I want to do that, or do I not? Because sometimes with hypnosis, it can bring out other memories and confuse the situation.
Yes.
So I worry about that, which is why I got the remote viewer to help me, because I figured that won't confuse me, but that really only gave me more questions.
Right. I,
um,
I think when people, here's another thing, a lot of people ask about being hypnotized. Okay, when you're being hypnotized, if you find a good person who's really medically, certified to do this, but you do not tell them what you want to know, because if you tell them that you've had UFO experience or abductions or whatever, that plants a seed in the person that's hypnotizing you.
Right.
That's what they're going to try to draw on. And guess what? They can produce, that image in your mind, and that'd be a false reading.
Right.
So never tell a hypnosis person exactly what you want to be hypnotized about. I tried one time, and it actually reversed. She was hypnotized. She went to sleep. And she was an
Really?
expert. Yes, she was an
Hmm.
expert. Yeah. She's been in the field for a long time. She's an older lady, and she was trying to knock me out on the couch, to where I could talk about my I guess what I saw. And I saw this giant triangle craft along with my mom and two brothers come over a house. But they she tried to knock me out. I had counted backwards from 10. When I did, I didn't hear anymore. I looked over, she was asleep
Oh my God.
at
I
the
never
desk.
heard that before. That's
Yeah.
a first.
Yeah, I heard the vibrations, and the I have this hum. You've heard of the towels hum, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, I have that. And when that hum got so loud, I told her, I said, the hum is so loud, I can't concentrate. I can't go out, or go to sleep like
Huh.
me to. And then all of a sudden it reversed and hit her. She went to sleep.
Hmm.
And she said, "Oh my God, that's the rapture. These giant triangle ships. She thinks were the rapture." That's what she woke up and said. I tried to shake her 3 times. That's how deep she was out.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
Really?
this happened in Belleville, Illinois. I
Okay.
It was reversed, and I knew something wasn't allowing me to talk or say anything to her, and she was knocked out. So it was strange, and then I paid her anyway. I said, "No, I know what's going on." I said, "The energies are here, and I felt them." And I said, "I knew you was going to be hit by it." And she'd, "Oh, I'm really so sorry." And I said, "No, it's okay." I said, you know, uh, I'm just not one to be hypnotized, but I don't want other people to think, well, I'm saying don't be hypnotized. Try it.
Right.
The
Right.
other thing too, Jesse, have you ever had these lucid dreams, like you might have been on a ship or you might have been abducted?
No, I've had dreams at it's funny. I've had dreams that location that I've been told about. I dream about that location. That's the one thing I do dream about all the time, and I'm always at the same location, but the dream is always different.
Yeah.
So, for example, they describe a lake or a river with a mountain. So, either one dream will be I'll be camping with my family right at the bottom of the mountain, and we're fishing and canoeing on the lake. And then another dream will be the same location, but I'm in the military and we're doing tightrope over the lake from the mountain. Or I'll be there with a bunch of friends and we're going swimming. And it feels so real. You feel like you're really there
Yeah.
doing it. And it's the same thing every time. I can feel that it's the same location, but it's a different type of dream. I don't know how to explain it really, but
Mhm.
it's
I've had
it's
I've had the
interesting.
lucid dreams, regress dreams. I like, the people out there listening, I like to have the regress dreams on your own and without the hypnosis and all this other stuff, because you can bring that forth yourself in a regress dream. Usually it happens after 3 o'clock in the morning, which is a bewitching hour. And there's a lot of things that happen to me after 3 o'clock. And even my camera today starts at 3 o'clock and shuts off at 9. And on every minute it makes a short video. And it's weird. It's just
Hmm.
they mess with electronics. It's like your study.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, they mess with electronics. But I would suggest that people, relax, and get into a deep sleep and think about what they want to dream about. They want to think about that one event, like your event. You think about it, and when you go to bed, you're planting your own seed, but that seed is going to take you back to when you were abducted or taken. Uh,
Right.
Now, I don't know if MUFON studies this, Jesse, but there's 3 types of abductions that I know of, and these are ones that I didn't read off anything. I didn't get this from anybody. There's a bedside abduction, and I had that happen to me with a little gray. And what they do to you, they take blood samples, DNA, semen, and they also take frequencies of your body. They also take memory from your body, from your mind, and they record all that. And then the second one is what I've been frozen. It's a frozen at about 3:30 in the morning every August for the last 6 years. August 10th through the 14th, I've been frozen in my bed,
Hmm.
deeply frozen. My body, I wake up, my body's just froze I mean, like I've been in the freezer. I go take a bath, not a bath, but I go to the bathroom to take a leak. I come back, I put the covers back on, and it's August, so it's not cold. And my wife, she hears little noises and she wakes up, but she didn't hear me shaking the bed violently. She didn't wake up. She was knocked out. I give it to my doctor and I told him, I said, this happened 6 times in a year, in a row. And she goes, I can't explain that. Her eyes got really big. I give her a copy of my book,
Wow.
so now she knows what that. But that's the second way. They take your energy, they take your consciousness, and they take you. When they take your energy, that's why your body goes cold. Then they take you to another dimension, take you through their portal. And I don't have regress dreams from those, uh, Jesse. I don't dream those. I don't know why I can't bring those back. What's going on? But the third one is when they beam you up and they take you to the ship.
Okay.
Uh, Mostly women go up in the ship because they're more extensive when they work on their eggs for fertilizing
Right.
type of thing,
Right.
hybriding. Uh, Now, after talking on, I'm unloading here, but that on those, what does MUFON think about these, Jesse? These abductions, those what I just said. Is there anything that's familiar with the MUFON studies?
You know, this year, actually, January, the ERT just started taking data on experiencer questionnaires. Before that, it was, we kept our notes in a notebook and we worked with the individual experiencer. And, we didn't really collect data on that. So we came up with a data sheet this year. And it's basically a checklist. So every time we work with somebody, we check yes, no, whatever. And then the main goal is to gather all that data up. And so we can figure out, what the similarities are, what happens, in these different situations. As for looking into the different types of abductions, I don't think we've done anything like that yet. I think it's getting there. It's trending towards gathering that kind of information. But I think they're waiting to have this going on for at least a year before we can try to do any kind of project like that to look into specific abduction scenarios.
Well, that's been my 30-year research. I come up with three forms or three ways of abduction. You
Okay.
mentioned the medical part of it in your bio, and I imagine that's the emotional part. The and Kathy Martin, great lady. You worked with her,
Yes. Yep. She's a part of the MUFON ERT. She actually
right?
is a consultant and she created that part of the MUFON.
Well, she actually did what you're talking about, a survey on abductees. She did that on me back in
Good.
2010, 2011. And
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
I know there was the free survey that was done on abduction experiencers. Les Velez, the director of Opus, um, and I believe Kathy Martin was in on that. But yeah, they've done. There's other organizations that have done them, and I know she's been a part of a couple of them.
yeah,
MUFON definitely will be heading there soon,
yeah.
hopefully.
She's semi-retired, I think. Kathy is.
Yeah, yeah.
Great
Hmm.
lady. I've had her on my shows a couple of times, and I've met her several times at conventions, and so I know her really well. Really great lady.
Yeah, she's
Uh,
a really good person.
yeah. Uh, Now, on where you're at now on your experiences with ETs and UFOs, have they slowed down, Jesse?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, everything's slowing down. Debating whether or not if I want to try to bring what was happening back and communicate with the one that was trying to show me the location. Because as I look back on it now, it wasn't a negative being. It was trying to show me something. It wanted to educate me about something. And because I was unaware, I wasn't not unaware, but I wasn't familiar with something like that coming at me full force. You know what I mean? So it scared me. So
Right.
I made it go away. And I'm thinking if I can try to communicate with that, but I also got to keep in the back of my head if it's a portal, then other things can come through that portal while I'm trying to communicate with this one. So I'm debating on whether I want to do it, and if I'm going to do it, how I'm going to do it, because I'm going to be careful about it.
Right.
I don't want to just allow anything to come out of that and start a whole nother experience.
Yeah.
But
Now,
I haven't had any sightings.
yeah.
I had those two sightings, yeah, last year and the year before that. So I haven't seen nothing since then. I haven't had a lot of activity happening in the room. Like I said, it's very little like paranormal, or things like things rumbling, or the string on the fan will be twirling like that, and I'm not touching it, and it's
Now,
usually in the middle of the night. So
do you know where this location is at? Can you go to it physically, Jesse?
I have no idea where it's at. I can see it. I know what it looks like from having all the dreams. If the dreams are true, I can describe it no problem. And to me, what it reminds me of in the dream is that it's some kind of lake bed, with the waterway going out to somewhere I don't know, with a huge kind of mountain range that kind of is flat and then it goes up and there's trees on it. I know that for a fact. There's
So
trees on both sides.
it's not in Pennsylvania then.
I wouldn't think so.
It could be out there at Skinwalker Ranch. That's
It
good.
could be, yeah.
That's a good show. Matter of fact, do you guys? How does MUFON feel about that show, Jesse?
I don't know if they have a take on it. I haven't heard a take on it, but I know a lot of the members and field investigators all watch that show for
Yeah,
sure.
I do
You
too.
know, yeah.
Very scientific. Uh, Now, you talked about half of your book is somewhat of your experiences. Now, the other part or other experiences, could you tell us? I know you can't say names or locations actually, but you can tell us probably the meat of the stories that you've heard that are really exciting that people would like to hear. Jesse, you know any of those you can tell us?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to tell too much because
Yeah.
I want everybody to look forward to it. But there was an encounter that happened during World War I, where an entire troop of personnel disappeared, and they never found them after the war. It was Turkey, I think it was Turkey, and it was Britain, Great Britain, Turkey, and one other country, and they were at war, and it was a whole platoon or a whole battery of men that went down this narrow path, and some kind of mist or fog came over them, and they never came out the other end to help back up the other troops during the war. And after the war was over, the good guys interrogated the bad guys and told them, "Hey, we want our men back," because they figured they're prisoners of war or they had killed them and they wanted their bodies to take home. And they said, "We never came in contact with your men. We never saw your men." So it's a really interesting story about how it all happened, all the ins and outs of that, which are really cool. And one of the big all-time, one of the most documented UFO crashes is that the Canadian crash. What was it? Trying to remember the name. All I know is that the police and the military and the civilian population all investigated that crash and saw it come down. And there was hundreds of people there that night that watched this. Oh, Shag Harbor, the Shag Harbor case
Sag
in
Harbor, yeah.
Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was documented extremely well. I mean, I just read the book that Whitley Strieber published with Don Berliner, and oh my God, Chris was there. He was one of the people, and he wrote the book too as well. And just the amount of people that were involved with that, and everybody, it wasn't hidden from the public at all.
Mm-hmm.
It was an object, and the military came out. The Canadian Royal Police, the mounted police were there. They were searching with vessels out in the ocean and the rivers. They actually found evidence too, but unfortunately, they didn't collect it unless they did, and we're just not told about it. But the foam substance that was floating in this river that they were going through, it was a mile long after this object had come down into the water. And then they also found out that, you know, there was another mission that was being done not far from there with the same object that came up on military radars that they were looking out there too. So it's a really good case. And Canada today is starting to get involved with the UFO field too, just like the United States is. So um, there's some really good information in the book about that and what Canada's doing right now too. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. Man. It's a good time to be involved in the field.
Yeah.
Really.
Any personal experiences of other people that you encountered and you've investigated that you can tell us about, Jesse?
I didn't put anybody else's particular cases in there, but one thing that is in there, about a couple of years ago, I came across some documents that nobody has seen to this day that I know of in the UFO field. One, haven't seen it published by anybody, and I went through the documents, and there's things that where it basically shows, and these are real documents. They're straight from a three-letter agency, and it states that the cover up is something that's very real, and it's controlled not just by media, but by the government and the military branches themselves,
Right.
and that it goes across their desk before it gets shipped out to the public view. And it literally shows, I don't want to say exactly what it is, but it tells you what they denied and what they would not allow out to the public eye and what they would. And some of the names of things like things that have to do with nuclear weapons and things that people probably haven't even heard of. So that's going to get published in the book as well, and the real documents will be in there, so you can see that they're real and that this was a real thing that happened, and it still happens to this day.
Right. Uh, I know that you're involved in this ERT team. Uh, could you tell us a little bit about what you do in that team, Jesse?
Absolutely.
That's supposed to be an elite group in the MUFON organization.
Absolutely. We like to say it's the best part of MUFON. It stands for the Experiencer Resource Team. Like I said, Kathleen Martin, she was the one that really created that, and there was another gentleman as well. But it's grown now, and it's another half of MUFON, and we really are. Most of us are experiencers, and we're very trained in the literature. We know how to work with individuals. I went and did some extra training just to be able to help in being an ERC member with my mental health certification, to be their certificate. Because we're basically a shoulder for these experiencers to lean on.
Right.
Most of them have nobody to talk to. They're cooped up in their houses, experiencing this contact with NHIs, non-human intelligences, and they have no one to talk to about it. And the ones that some do, they try to reach out to their family and say, "Hey, this is happening to me," and the relationships wind up getting so destroyed because of stigma and what surrounds this topic. So when they reach out to us, it's basically, we're there. We're not there to prove if your case is true or if it's not. We're there to talk to you, help you, walk you through your case. We will get you meetings that are local to you so you can get involved with the public and in the community with others that are having similar contact experiences with you. So you can not only learn about it, but know that you're not alone in all this. We also have referrals that we can get you to a therapist or a hypnotherapist, or if you want a remote viewer, those things. We have the lab too, so if you have any samples or anything like that, we can get them tested for you. But yeah, we work with some of these, like a normal sighting case, 3 months, you close the case out and that's that. But when you are an ERT member and experiencer fills out an experiencer resource report, we work with some people for years. Just because we close the case out doesn't mean we stop talking to you. I mean, I have one individual that I've been working with since day one, and we still talk every so often. And whenever they need to talk to somebody, I'm there and we schedule a phone call.
Right.
It's like being a therapist, but you're not a therapist. You're an ERT member for MUFON.
Right.
So it's a really good core group of individuals that are veteran field investigators as well, and have a lot of knowledge to share, and they're really good people.
I I've run into people, and I know you have too, Jesse, on your podcast. You also have a podcast, and you mentioned it. We mentioned it earlier on, and it's hard to get a person that's going to explain themselves, like on radio or on video. It's hard to get them on the air to explain things because they're so fearful. Just like you said, they're also afraid of MUFON. If they get into talking to MUFON, that you're going to be skeptical and you're not going to believe them.
Right.
I think early on, maybe 20, 30 years ago, some of that skepticism might have bled over into certain groups and also to certain podcasters or to interviewers. But I think now with disclosure going on, that we have some vindication that UFOs are real. People still don't want to believe that ETs are walking amongst us.
Absolutely.
And they are, and they do abduct people, and they do these silent abductions. Like I said, they can knock you off. But also, I must mention, there's also our technology, our military groups, our little secret groups that know how to do a lot of this stuff too. Like a military industrial complex and that type of thing. They know a lot more than what they're telling us.
Absolutely.
And I know, does your organization MUFON, Jesse, have a contact person that talks to the military, or do they have, and I want you to talk about this meeting they had just today, the 26th, about disclosure. I've heard some positive and I've heard some negative things about it, but you might be able to know more about it. Do you have a MUFON rep that covers that, or somebody, a representative?
Yeah,
Tell us about all this.
so when the first information came out in the bill that President Trump had signed, and that there would be a briefing or a hearing or a report done, um, the director of MUFON, Dave McDonald, before that actually happened, he actually got one of our other main members and actually drove out to Washington and began briefing members of Congress, state representatives, senators. He did this with about five or six members, that actually wanted to hear about this information about UFOs. When he did it, they all loved the briefings. You know, the information was great because they really had no knowledge of this stuff, and the programs that were put into place by the Pentagon and the DoD and all the other ones, they were just like Project Blue Book. There was nothing to them. There was no real information being given to our senators and our political parties on this subject at all. So Dave McDonald took it upon himself to go out there and do this and brief these individuals so they had the right information for when the bill came along where it was time to give information out to the public. Now he went out and briefed them, and by the time he got home that night, he looked at his emails and he had a bunch more emails, and he had to go back to Washington the following week, and he briefed over 30 to 40 different politicians that all wanted briefings on the UAP subject.
Hmm.
So he went back there and he made it a multiple day thing where he briefed all these individuals on all the different type of information and data that MUFON has collected since the inception, since 1969, to give them the right stuff. Because I mean, they were asking questions that were really irrelevant in the beginning, had no idea about how far back this went. And I think it's really sneaky because the government only goes back to the early 2000s, and they only talk about, you know, well, from the 2000s to now. Yeah, but what about all the way back in Roswell?
Yeah.
What about the mystery airships in the late 1800s?
Right.
You know, that information was given to them so they understood, and then they can do their own research on it and find this information. So when the hearings come up, they knew what questions to ask and who to hardball. So Dave McDonald did a great job of that. He posted about it in the MUFON Monthly Journal and told everybody who he briefed, all the different names, and what he briefed them on. So that was really cool. Great information. And then today, you know, we had our big hearing today, which is our third or fourth one already.
Yes.
And it was with three whistleblowers, David Grush, Lieutenant Graves, and Lieutenant Commander Fravor. Two pilots and one intelligence official. And I thought that the hearing was actually a lot better than what I thought it was going to be. And because the politicians were educated on the right information this time, they asked all the right questions. And they really asked the hardball questions. And basically today we learned that David Rush knows that we have reverse engineered craft from not here on this planet that we have been working with for years. And not only just technology and reverse engineering of this stuff, but there's been biological samples taken by our three-letter agencies. So all this information is going to come out, and they're going to start putting new bills into place because of this now. And then, I mean, it was said multiple times by multiple different politicians today during the hearing that they're going to put bills in place and implement them so that for now on, even if you're, you know, private industry where a FOIA request doesn't work, they're going to have to be transparent with the public now and give the proper information because it's time. After 80 years of covering this stuff up, and now we have these people coming out, and other whistleblowers are going to follow suit because Dave Grush is encouraging all of his other fellow counterparts to also follow in his footsteps and come forward, because now there's a safety path to it. You know, they made this not long ago to where he can come out now and tell all this information without getting pushback. And another thing David Grush said today is that he and his family were basically confronted by three-letter agency intelligence officers, and he was threatened. He was physically and mentally sought after by these individuals, and he knows, well, he didn't say it fully, but he said he would brief them behind closed doors in a skiff, that other individuals might have also been attacked and lost their lives over this topic. So I thought it went pretty well today. I didn't expect all that information to come out. I didn't expect them to throw the hardball questions. So I think we're we got our foot in the right place, and moving forward, things are going to start changing, I think, because of this.
Yeah, Jesse, what I heard before this, there's always some negative and positive, and there's
Oh
some
yeah.
misinformation that comes out. I heard that this meeting was at an Air Force base in Florida, and I guess Marco Rubio, senator, he's one of them, I guess, on the staff. They had a senator on Skinwalker Ranch last night. What was his name? It's a short name, Bell or something, and he was there with them in on the Skinwalker Ranch. He's a senator. He's a
Okay.
Republican senator. Uh, Gee, I can't think of his name. It's just I should have gotten his name before I talked about it, but he watched Skinwalker Ranch from last night's show, and he was there. And I was surprised that he sat around the table with him, was talking about this, and he said he wants to know what they find and
Yeah.
that he wants a link to what they're doing. Uh, uh, but the other thing I heard too is that David Grush, I heard he is second and third hand information, that he didn't see these things directly firsthand. How about the other two guys? Did they see the things firsthand?
Oh well, Commander David Fravor, he went out on, it was a training mission, and during the training mission, they told him to cancel training and now go into real world. Real world means that there's a real live mission, and he went out to a location that he had on coordinates, and he's seen the tic tac object floating over top of the ocean, doing crazy zigzag motions.
Mm-hmm.
And today he actually clarified on that, because he said when he looked at this tic tac and it was going over the ocean was rumbling underneath the tic tac.
Wow.
And when he clarified today is that he believes that there was a second object during that tic tac that was underneath the water, making the water rumble, and the tic tac was the second object. But he went down and he got about, I think he said 2,000 feet away in altitude from this tic tac object, and then it took off at the blink of an eye and was gone. And he got a radio call that the tic tac was actually at his cap point, which was the next destination for him to go and return to in a matter of 5 seconds, and that's impossible. So he had firsthand witness of these objects and what they can do, and he says that we have never had anything, and not even today, and we probably won't have it for at least 20 more years.
Yeah.
So
Are we having pushback? I heard also these rumors. I'm just trying to get rid of this disinformation. I heard that the Pentagon was pushing back on this meeting. Half of them believe that they should have these meetings. The other half are really disclosed. They're still not letting everything out. No, it's still a kind of a standoff, I think, in a way. But it's nice that we're talking. But I mean, if they don't release the information to the Pentagon and they don't come out and tell us who they are, I've heard our country is working with 4 ET races.
Okay.
I've heard that. I've heard it from interviews from colonels and these people that are top officers working with Michelin men. I've had one in my house. I got pictures of him. They got these white suits with the concentric circles, and they're working with the tall whites,
Okay.
working with the tall grays, and they're also working with, I guess, the Nordics. So there's 4 of them that they're working with. And then also you hear the underground, evil ones like the
Reptilians. Yep.
and actually there's humanoid. They're just like us. They're human, but they don't like us. So they're part of that evil group. And actually my sci-fi book, it has all those elements in it that I'm thinking out loud here. I wanted to ask you, my book's what do they want? Now, what does MUFON think these ETs want from us, Jesse?
I don't think they've come out and put a position like that about what they want. From what I understand and my beliefs is that I'm open-minded to just about every possibility, because just like there's not one race, there's multiple different races, and just like here on Earth, we all have our different agendas. You know what I mean? And I believe they all have different agendas as well. I don't think it's a particular thing, because we have so many different kinds. So one might want to, make a mix of half alien, half human, and some might be here to help the planet. So I think they keep that open mind as well. I can't speak for them, but that's how I look at it.
Right.
And that's how most of the people that I've talked to look at it.
Yeah. I think there are some that are bad that want to take
Absolutely.
this planet over, and then there's some of them that are good, especially the four that are with us, and they've been involved in DNA manipulation for thousands of years through our mankind. They 60,000 years ago, the Anunnaki and all this, starting from it way back. Our DNA is
Oh,
5
absolutely.
billion years old. We come from another planet, actually, from what the scientists are saying now. I want to put my own research message on this thing about what do they want. After I wrote the book, I've been getting this information that's coming to me, and I think it's coming to me slowly, with all the interferences I have, and I know they've been in my house, but I'm not crazy. I got a high IQ. I'm 5 years in journalism school. I'm a journalist. I'm not a scientist. So what I'm saying, what I'm going to tell you now is from what I'm seeing, why they want to be in contact with us or abduct us or whatever. When the scientists are when they say we are 20% of our DNA is all we use. That's what scientists and doctors are saying. The other 80% is junk DNA. Well, there are scientists now coming forward, Oxford and Harvard, saying that no, that 80% is not junk. It is usable and something's using it. Our DNA frequencies, they can take one DNA strand and get the frequency from it. Now, we're good enough to do that. We can do our 20% frequency because they're doing that with cancer research. They're doing DNA, separating DNA, and they're getting that frequency from it. And each person has a different frequency, and that's unique to our fingerprints. But what I'm saying is that 80%, the ET humanoid I ran into, the first thing she told me was, I know you. I said, I don't know you, and met her out in the middle of nowhere, in Sedona. She said, I know you. I said, how do you know me? She said, I know you. She said, we were supposed to meet. I thought to myself, okay, there's something in that message that I need to try to clarify or find out. What I'm
Right.
finding out, Jesse, is that 80% of our DNA, we're nothing but a big recording unit. We're kind of like a computer master chip with all the memory in it. That 80% is our family bloodline from thousands of years back, our humankind from thousands of years back. The ETs know how to read that 80% that we don't use because they read it and they can see that they've seen other, I guess, actually their races or their ETs in our background that's been here. They know they can identify the different frequencies of the 80% junk. And I think that's what they're doing. They keep track of us. They're actually manipulating our DNA. They're trying to get us more peaceful, more harmonious, more euphoric, and quit killing each other. And I think that's why I heard, and this may not be disinformation. I heard that these four races are telling the Pentagon and military people, no, they don't want the disclosure yet because they don't think we're ready. Because we're not a peaceful people. And look at us, we're not.
No, we're not. We're a war bearing civilization.
Yeah. So, what is your ideas on those crazy journalistic ideas? Not a scientist or a doctor, but that's my opinion of what they're doing. They're taking our frequencies, they're taking our DNA, they're taking our semen, they're taking blood samples, they're reading our minds, they're trying to figure out, how we're being developed,
Right.
how they can help improve that development coming along. And also, I have something about cattle mutilations. This is going to kind of blow your mind too. My ideas on this is I think the cattle mutilations, when they take like their lips, their genitals, and their anus, those are areas of high concentration of DNA. Now, there's other planets with humans on them. The scientists agree there is other planets with us humans on those planets. What they're doing, if they're cultivating another planet for humans, they're taking the DNA of the cattle and our livestock for feedstock for other humans. They grow cattle for them to eat the protein, so something to feed them with. And that's why they're taking all this DNA, and they're only taking certain parts of it, not the whole thing. It's kind of like a Noah's Ark type of thing. They're taking it and they're breeding these cattle for humans on other planets to eat. So they're actually, and I had a regress dream being on a ship that was actually a tall white female, about 7 foot tall. She was beautiful, so I wasn't afraid of her. But it was kind of like a Noah's Ark ship, like three platforms. Yeah, three platforms of three different animals, and then they was holding these animals by some kind of a rope or something. But what I'm saying is, have an idea on those types of things. What I mean, theories and ideas are welcomed. From me, I accept other. What do you think about it? Am I crazy, Jesse?
No, when you say that they're trying to help, make us better, make us smarter, make us more aware, just from research and with the hybrid program and working with experiencers that have had different contact experiences with non-human intelligences, what I've learned is that the hybrid program is there for a reason because aliens really don't have that compassion statement with them. At least the grays, they say they're real robotic like.
Mhm.
They don't have compassion, they don't have love, they don't have caringness. So a lot of times when it's a hybrid situation, they come back with the hybrid to the original mother because the mother can share that sympathy and that caring and give that to that child. So what I think is, and people, we're a war-bearing civilization. We don't want to be at peace, so we both have our faults. So with this hybrid civilization, they're making the best of both worlds into a civilization that is caring,
Right.
that isn't war-bearing, that will, really be super smart people and trying to make it all better, like you said, in a sense. And I do think that is one of the main goals here, and it makes sense on every level if you look at it that way.
Well, actually, to get into shape shifting too, they said the reptilians do that. Uh,
Yeah,
I saw a shape shifting young lady, beautiful young lady, and she looked at me with reptilian eyes, and she acted weird. There's a weird energy. Once you run into this energy, you kind of know what it is. That third eye
right.
starts working. But they walk amongst us. So I want to take a break and say this is the Dave Emmons Show, Strange Reality, and my guest today is Jesse Peak. He's a MUFON investigator, ERT. He's involved in a lot of different things. He's what I call an expert because he's studying this stuff and he works with a lot of good people. So, but getting back on the topic of things here, I just think with the humans that are walking amongst us, they're trying to elicit emotions from us. I talked to Daryl Sims after I ran into the ET in Sedona, and she was eliciting emotions from me. She was asking me how I felt about if I argued with a workmate, how I felt about my parents. Was I treated mean? And she said she was treated mean. And she cried. That was a fake cry. She could have went to Hollywood, but they're eliciting. Daryl Sims told me said they're eliciting emotions because that's what they lack. And you alluded to that a while ago, like
Yeah.
these like ETs, they lack emotions. Uh, Now, have you guys studied that stuff in ERT or MUFON, Jesse?
No, like I said, we really haven't, I mean, we're still in the process of collecting the data. So I really don't think they're going to do anything until after the first year, at least, with the data, looking into those kind of aspects of the phenomenon.
Yeah, I now I'd like to get into this project Batek 404. Could you tell us about that project?
Yeah, so I started Project Battech 404 because of the experience that I had with my cell phone malfunctioning, and I didn't know that was a big part of the phenomenon until I started researching it, and then it started popping up in the research. Leonard Stringfield, big time UFO researcher, he was with MUFON, CUFOS, Newfork, all of the NICAP. But when he was in the military, and it was World War II. It was 4 days through 3 or 4 days before the war ended. He was in a C-46 cargo plane with 13 specialists and 2 pilots. He was flying, going to Tokyo. And during this flight, he had identified objects come up on the left wing of the C-46 cargo plane. And at that time, everybody on the plane had saw him and looking at him, and the left engine began to fail, blowing out black smoke. It completely stalled. The plane started decreasing in altitude, and the pilots are radioing back to the specialist and Leonard Stringfield that they're going to have to dive out of the plane. At this time, they get to a certain altitude, and the unidentified objects take off. Boom! And all of a sudden, the black smoke stops coming out of the left engine and kicks back on, and they regain their altitude and they land safely in Tokyo. So that was a really big encounter because all those men could have died. But it just shows you that these objects were making that engine malfunction. So that was really brought to my attention about my phone, and that's where it stemmed from. And BATTech stands for battery technology, and 404 is a normal error code that you'll get with a cell phone or a camera when you get an error.
Mhm.
So what I did is I recruited a team. I trained the team. I did them, kind of similar stuff to MUFON. Made sure they had all the right information. We created a database, which is the most accurate database to date on EM encounters. We're also in collaboration with CUFOS, the Center for UFO Studies, MUFON, the British UFO Network, and the UAP Medical Coalition. So we have all the different files from John Schuessler and CUFOS. We put that together along with our database full of information and cases. We created a website so everybody can go over there and see all the team members that are on there. And also there's an email where people can report their EM cases to. To date, I think we have published 7 or 8 papers on our page on our website, and they range from everything. One of the main papers are the main cases that we've investigated that are historical and up to date, so you can get an idea of what we're looking at, what we're researching, and what we're looking for. And then some of the other papers are the locations that EM encounters happen the most, the physical effects that come from EM, and they range from everything from physical to mental to cognitive issues to brain injuries to injury of your eyes to bloody noses to hair loss to radiation poisoning and burns. The list is pretty extensive, and which is why it's an important topic. Now we've also looked into different landing traces during crashed UFOs and landing sites, because if we can figure out if something's leaking or there's material left behind, that can give us clues to the type of propulsion they have, which leads to the EM that they're affecting us with. And we've actually found some really cool stuff. One of them being our organic carbide, green polyvinyl, fluoride, and sulfur. Sulfur is one of the big ones. And if you look at what each of these substances are they're all different kind of materials that are put onto like the space shuttle for NASA. Some of them are to protect against heat from going in and out of our atmosphere. So the project's bringing out a lot of great information to the public, and that's what we made sure we did from day one, is that we are a public project. None of the information that we get is hidden, and anybody's welcome to go on there and check out our papers and use the information. We find that electricians tend to become experiencers because they get shocked by electricity, and it kind of puts them on a different frequency. So it's bringing up a lot of really neat stuff that we've been looking into since the start.
What about blackouts of cities? Like they had this big thing in New York on the East Coast. They still have never figured that out. What causes those blackouts? Do you think that UFOs have caused those, Jesse?
I absolutely believe so, because I think, like we talked about earlier, there's that range, and they talked about why we don't get really good pictures of UFOs. Well, it's because the UFO doesn't want us to get a really good picture of it. So if there's a major sighting, and for example, like the Phoenix Lights, they could easily go ahead and shut off the power so nobody gets pictures or video or anything like that. So I believe that they're capable of that, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, actually, we saw that in that Steven Spielberg movies where the car batteries just go dead and the car stops.
Yep.
And a lot of abductees say the same thing. Like the Hills, back 65, 66, somewhere, their battery car went out and they just stopped and they couldn't move. So they were abducted. Anita and Barney Hill. And Kathy Martin, of course, is a niece.
Yep.
These two, and she has the story down pat. She knows a lot of information. She's gathered more information, and like I said, she's a great lady. I have to give her kudos for that. Now, when you get all this information, and you say here you're gonna write a final research paper on all these findings, Jesse.
Yeah. So we just started a new project, Project Bad Tech, with BUFON, the British UFO Network, where we're looking at EM cases specifically to the UK. Now, I've recently just published a paper. It's disposition statistics to date, which is based on everywhere in the world. So I published that paper, and I basically we have set a number of dispositions that we give for each EM case. So we collected all those, we put it into statistics, and we basically made a graph, and you can see how much of what each disposition is affected the most, whether it be cameras, cell phones, electricity outages, military installations, things like that. And then we also gave information on, uh, uh, what's being affected the most, and information like that. So that's the first one that was already published. So we plan to do the same thing with the UK. This way people understand the data that we're trying to put out there.
That's the battle between ghost investigators and ET and UFO investigators is when electricity flickers in a house or it goes off, or your computer goes offline like mine does a lot. I mean, ever
Yeah.
since 2010, I think I've been targeted or whatever. And I'll be talking to a lady next week who talks about being targeted. It's this modern technology, this microwave, and this Havana syndrome or whatever.
Yes.
Now that could actually be ET also, and I think I've actually been hit by that because I felt really woozy one night for about 7 minutes, and then I got up, and it wasn't vertigo. I know what vertigo's like.
Right.
It's just like a
Yep.
sleep paralysis like. But you're talking about the UK. The people that I've talked to, I just talked to a UK guy the other night. I was a guest on the show. They're great people, and they're
Yeah.
minded. And you're working with
Absolutely.
a great group of people there at the UK. Now you have the Center for UFO Studies, CUFOS. I've heard of the organization. Are you working with them, and or is that part of the UK experience?
So Kufos is actually here in the States. J. Allen Hynek was the man who did Project Blue Book. He started Kufos, Center for
Yeah.
UFO Studies. Don Schmidt's a part of that. It's based out of Roswell, New Mexico. And what happened is we were looking for EM data very early on. And so I reached out to Kufos and some other organizations because I figured, we all have these separate organizations all over, and the data is spread out all over the place. So why not start getting in collaboration and become affiliates with each other and share all of our information so it's all in one place and we can have the most accurate data? So I reached out to Kufos and found out that they actually did a project back in I think it was the 60s, 70s, and 80s on EM. And the gentleman who did that report sent me the entire file, and so we became in collaboration with each other. So we started working together, and we used that data as part of our data and put it all together so we can give more accurate information out to the public. Sort of same thing with Bufon. Their EM stuff, whenever they get an EM case, they send it all over to us so we can add it in there as well. And same thing with the UAP Medical Coalition. We do all the EM medical effects for UAP Med. So, we try to just get everybody together in one place and put all the data together and have everybody work together instead of separately. You
Jesse,
know,
could you tell us the symptoms of being, I guess, irradiated or magnetic energy being thrown on us? What are some of the symptoms of that?
So one of the big cases that we talk about is the Cash Landrum case. It was a mother, her grandmother, and a granddaughter in a vehicle, and they were driving down the road one night, and they came around this bend, and this huge diamond-shaped
Yeah.
kind of object was in the middle of the road. It was so bright. So the mother had stopped the car, and they got out of the vehicle. The little girl stayed in the back seat, but the mom and the grandmom got out, and they were looking at this thing. And then all of a sudden, these military Black Hawk helicopters came along and escorted this thing away. And they went back to go get in the car, and the car handles were so hot that it actually burnt their hands. So they got in the car finally and went home. And the next day they woke up, and these symptoms are with all EM effects. They woke up the next day and they had nausea, they were throwing up.
Right.
And as the day went on, their hair began to fall out. They began to have bloody noses. And we know that EM can actually fry your blood cells and change your blood cells and cause clots. Also, the way that you feel with the Havana syndrome, when you have EM frequencies being shot at you, whether they're microwave or radio frequency, it changes the way your mind thinks. So you can be a completely happy person, and if EM is around you and shooting at you, it can make you turn bipolar and make you snap into a negative person.
Yeah.
But it can give you problems with your gut. Your bowels can become irritable. It can give you cancer. And you'll wind up getting blotches of burns from radiation on your body.
Mhm.
But I mean, there's so much more to it. You can have cognitive issues. The brain is one of the big parts of EM. And then once you get to that part, it becomes very scary because you're not only going to have physical ailments, but you'll have mental ailments as well, and you won't be able to think right properly. So there's a big list of them. And I am the co-founder of UAP Medical Coalition, which has all the effects. And we actually built a forum that people can go on and see all the medical effects that happen during UAP exposures. So,
Yeah, I think I've been exposed to that myself. I've been hit because sometimes, and actually in an abduction, there's a series. There's little steps that they do. First of all, they make you tired. You get very tired. The times that I was really tired is I can remember there was an abduction or some occurrence happened afterwards. I was setting my computer, and this is the one I really remember quite a bit. And I was really wide awake, and the sun was shining. It was about 1 o'clock, 1:30. I was doing some computer work, probably on UFOs, on my ledger that I wrote, a big, thick ledger in which I put into a book. But I was very tired. I said, "What's going on?" I was just really, I was just kind of bobbing and weaving, and I thought, "This is not right." I don't take naps during the day at all. So I went in my bed and I laid down to rest my back, and I put my chin, in my palm, my left palm, and then that's when it happened, all the crackling and the abduction. But I heard other people say that's a step also that you feel very tired before the next step where they start abducting you.
yeah,
And
like a drained of energy.
yeah, you're drained of energy. Yeah, Jesse, that's one of the things. But I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. This I don't want you to take it on the negative side, but it's something that I've been noticing since I've been doing podcasting, and you're doing podcasting too, so you probably know this too. And being a MUFON, you might see it. There's two problems I have with the infighting of all this ufologists and researchers. Number one, the talking heads. You got Dolan, you got all these other people, Linda Moulton Holland, which I know very well. I can contact her at will, but I don't contact her for no reason. She's a busy person, so I don't call her unless I really
Right.
have something that I want to talk to her about or show her. But George Knapp, also, I've heard this on UFO shows also. What's going on now since the military got involved and kind of partially disclosing. Now the talking heads are saying, well, now we have credible people we can listen to. We've got pilots, professional pilots. We've got military. Well, I was in the military. I had top secret. I was never trained about UFOs. So how would I know more about UFOs than the regular, normal person on the street? And then they say they got the military and they got military pilots. And so now they have these people they can depend on giving them credible knowledge, and then saying, well, the people on the street, they don't believe. And
Right.
this hit me in the chest. I said, oh my God, what they're doing is they're trying to get rid of all of us normal people, or not average person, not normal. We are normal, actually. But they're trying to get rid of all the stories and experiences we've got. And they're saying, well, we'll only believe the professionals. You're no longer believable because you're not a professional. And also a lot of stories that are put up on TV and put. I've heard other experiencers say this too, and it's just not me, or it's coming from a lot of other people. They're saying that sometimes organizations cherry pick the stories they want to put out there or promote.
Absolutely.
You feel that way too?
I believe that the whole news media is controlled by three-letter agencies, and they give them the information they want out there, and what they don't, they skip right over it.
Are you talking about the talking heads that pick and choose, cherry pick the stories they want, Jesse?
There's people in ufology that pick and choose as well. Absolutely. I think some benefit more from it, some don't. Some of it has become money involved, and it's ruined them, and it's a shame. I don't want to name names,
Yeah.
but there are plenty of people that were in this field that have done such amazing work by bringing people together, whistleblowers, and then all of a sudden they started making money, and it's just become a money grab now.
Right. That's how I feel.
It ruins people.
Yeah. I just it's like I've got these pictures. I even got some short videos, and the couple of talking heads, they didn't want any part of them. And I thought, well, what do you want? A Spielberg production, a 2-hour movie?
Right.
I think that's what they're wanting. It's like you got to, if you're just an average person on the street, I'm not no longer average, I guess, because I'm a researcher and I've been involved in all this other stuff. But there's average people out there that's got stories to tell. They're afraid to tell them because they know that the ufologists, the talking heads, and maybe even groups, or even the podcasters like you and myself, we discriminate against them because we don't think they're credible. Now that's not true on my part of it. I know it's not true because just hearing you say that you agree
Absolutely.
with that,
Yeah.
there is cherry picking. Could you?
And I make sure every year I hold a experiencer month. So
Yeah,
people that have had experiences come on and have a safe place to share, just like you said, your show is a safe place.
right.
And we need to have more of those because a lot of people that have shows today will, they'll criticize an experiencer or make it an unsafe place, which is why they're scared to come out in the first place.
Yeah, yeah. A
So
lot, and then hearing guys like George Knapp, it's like coming out and saying, well, now we have professionals who can be more credible instead of depending on the stories from the street.
yeah, it's sad.
It's sad.
If you're not military or anything like that, or a police officer, your story really isn't it doesn't hold anything. And it's a shame because we're just as important as the military people are.
Right,
And look, me and you both had military training, but
right.
they would take somebody else's over us. So
Yeah, it's like my buddy who saw this UFO with me, my second one, when we was 14. He went on to be a police, commander, and also he was a chief of police. So I mean, he wasn't a chief of police back then, but I know a lot of cops. They're not trained with UFOs. When they
no.
see a UFO, they see it just like we do, and they'll actually talk about it just like we will. Oh, it's round, it's this,
Yeah.
it's got a blue color or whatever. They'll describe it like we do. So where is all the expertise? Why
They
the
use that word trained observer.
yes, yes, that's what they're using now. Do you think that's part of a strategy for people to believe now more in disclosure? Because you got 50% of the people who don't believe a lot of these UFO stories, but now if they're trained observers, like you said, and we got disclosure coming on, maybe it all fits, Jesse, just like you said.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely in play. I believe that 100%. Absolutely. If
So
they say trained observer, it's a normal person. They're like, oh, well, he must be an experienced person that knows what he's talking about, right?
yeah,
And is able to see these things and know the difference. That's what normal people that aren't involved in the field think. You know, but us researchers, we know.
yeah,
They're not trained observers to see that kind of thing.
yeah. I
Some are
yeah,
pilots and things like that, but I mean, a
military
regular police
pilot.
officer,
Yeah. When I was in Vietnam, I was trained to identify our aircraft from the enemy aircraft, or they didn't use that many aircraft. The North Vietnamese didn't back in that time. So there's only a few, but they didn't get too close to us because they know they'd be shot down. So,
right?
but I knew the difference between enemy aircraft in a small parameter. I didn't, it's not worldwide. You're not taught
Right.
worldwide aircraft. You're just taught where your combat area is at, the zone of your territory there. Jesse, I got this information on your handout. It's a UFO Encounters Worldwide, sponsored by Spiritual Consciousness Personal Journey, Kevin J. Briggs.
Yes.
Do you know him?
Yeah. Kevin Jabers, that's the official sponsor for our show right now.
Oh, really?
He's actually going to be on the show tomorrow. For his first time coming on, he's got that book, Spiritual Consciousness: A Personal Journey, which is now the #1 bestseller at BMK Publishing.
Wow.
It's really good. It talks about his contact with non-human intelligence, his introduction with consciousness. And he's a really bright, really good guy, really nice gentleman, and he's happy to share his story. He's always involved sharing stuff, researcher, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's planning on writing a more depth another book, which will be coming out. And hopefully that'll be a sponsor of our show as well. But great guy. And tomorrow everybody will be able to hear his story on our show, and we'll really get into details. So
That's
good guy.
great. It sounds like you're doing a great job in reaching out to these people too, Jesse. And I appreciate that too.
Thank you.
Anybody who serves in the military right now serves enlightening people like you are, and you're working hard. I know how hard a job this is. I'm semi-retired, and I don't like being on schedule, but I have to put myself on schedule. But
Absolutely.
you also talk about there's Mike Barra. I see on this, and is he on your show too, or is he going to be on your show?
Mike Barra was on last week.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
And he's from Ancient Aliens. Everybody knows him pretty well.
Right. Yeah.
We've had a lot of good people on: Don Schmidt, Tom Carey, Stephen Bassett, Grant Cameron. I mean, we had Kathleen Martin. We had, I mean, tons and tons of names people know.
Yeah.
It's up to episode 96. We're almost at 100. So
Yeah. I had Grant Cameron. Matter of fact, I had him opened my show at K-Core when I started with that out of Las Vegas.
Okay.
It was just audio only. And I had a hard ass CEO there. Everything was just timed out so well. His radio is professional. Okay. They did all the production, but I had to pay for that production. Not that much, but I had to pay.
Right.
But
Right.
I asked Grant because I did some things with him. He's a great guy. I like
Yeah.
Grant
Yep.
Cameron, great guy. He doesn't pick and choose his experiences either. He's really nice to everybody. And I've done a couple of shows with him on his, he had a group meeting and stuff, and I give him stuff afterwards for his book and stuff, and we exchange stories. And I asked him, I said, could you do an opening show for me at K-Core? And he said, sure.
There you
Sure. And I
go.
said, oh, wow, great. And so Kathy
Yeah.
I've had on too, and Stephen Bassett. Those are all great people.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I
Good
like,
people in the field.
yeah, I like them all. And well, let's start winding this down. We're getting to the hour and a half point. And then could you tell us a little bit how we can get a hold of you? And
Yeah.
I'm going to say something funny here. I told somebody the other day, a UK guy, and I always have fun with these UK guys. They got a sense of humor, and I said, he said, how can we get a hold of you, Dave? And I said, well, okay, here's I don't really have a website. I have a book, Hanger One, a publishing company. I'm on their site with my two books. I got a third one, and a fourth one, but I held up my shirt and I said, yeah, Google me, baby. So if you
That's good.
Google, you Google my name and abductions and ETs, you'll get all that information. But this is about how we can get a hold of you and how we can contact you, and experiencers can contact you.
Yeah. Thank you. So you guys can you can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and I'm on TikTok now. That's the newest one. But you have my website for the podcast, which is ufoencountersworldwide.wordpress.com. The project for Project Battech is projectbattech404.wordpress.com. And I'm also the co-founder and member team lead at UAP Medical Coalition, which is uapmc.org. Yeah, and I work through email. You can get my emails on my website. I answer everybody. Sometimes I can't get to you right away, but I will get to you. Anybody needs help, I do help people on the side. It's good to go through the ERT though. But yeah, I talk to everybody. I'm very active on all the social media platforms, so I try to stay involved with the community, plus do the research.
Great.
So very easy to get a hold of. The book will be out probably December, January. I'll be posting more about that. And the podcast comes out every Thursday on all podcast platforms. And then you can also listen on Saturday nights at 8 p.m. on the UNX Network Digital Broadcast Radio.
Great. Good job, buddy. I mean, getting that word out and doing the
Thank you.
I admire, and people are telling me the same thing. They like, getting that word out to people. We're trying to enlighten people and let people know the truth.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's a big thing that I try to do is spread the word, get the younger generation involved in it sooner. Right. Get them get with the right information. Right. I want them to get this information getting into the field. So it's our job as veteran researchers and investigators to make sure we educate them properly.
Right. I will actually post some of your websites on the. I do a narrative on my when I release my shows. And maybe I'll release it on Spotify too.
Yeah, why not?
I'll get on there. But Jesse F. Peak was my guest, a MUFON field investigator, ERT member, and an all-around great guy, enlightening people and accepting people and experiencers. So feel comfortable with him. I'm glad to have you on the show.
Yeah,
good show. I loved it. I loved talking about these agencies and things that you're involved in. Because I need to know more about that myself. But I want to thank you very much for being on the show, Jesse Peak, and everybody else. Good night from Dave Emmons, the Strange Reality Show. And I will have this show posted probably within the next few days. I'm a little bit behind posting shows because I've had so many guests, in the last week. Some, how that happens. It just, you got.
Oh yeah.
You got when a guest tells you, okay, I want to be taken off for 2 weeks. Well, I said, well, okay, I better get you before you take off. So then you crowd them in, and then all of a sudden you're behind on your production. I want to get yours out for sure in the next few days. Thank you so much, Jesse Peak.
No problem. Thanks
And
for having me on.
good night, everybody.